It's rare that I find something where I'm like, if you fix this alone, it could easily add 5 points to your score overnight. This is Abigail, and she's looking to go from a 147 to 160 and beyond in the next 4 months. My name is Steve Schwartz, and I've been teaching the LSAT for the past 20 years. Today, Abigail's going to bring me her biggest LSAT challenges, and I'm going to help her address them as she looks to improve by 10, 15 points and beyond. Hello, Abigail.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Well, it's great to finally meet you face to face.
Same
How's
to you.
everything been coming along?
Things have been going okay so far. I'm definitely still getting used to the program and just everything about the LSAT in general. So glad I had the opportunity to meet with you today.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help. Before we dive in, I have a couple of questions just to get a better background on where you're at right now, and then we could discuss some strategies. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, perfect. So where are you scoring right now?
I got a 147, so not the greatest, definitely not where I want to be. And I also ran out of time. So a lot of the questions were guessed.
Okay, so with those caveats, and then what are your ultimate goals for the LSAT? Where you're looking to score?
I would be happy with 160, and anything above that would be even better.
Cool. All right, so at least maybe like a 15-point increase or so.
Yeah.
And then how long do we have till your test?
I would like to take the LSAT in September. If I have to push it back a little bit, I can, but I really would like to aim for September.
Okay, cool. So we've got about 4.5 months till then. And how many hours per week do you think you could put in over the next 4 months?
Aiming for about 15. I am going to be working full-time after graduation, so I feel like it could be a little bit subject to change, but that's the goal.
A lot of students panic when they score in the 140s on their cold diagnostic, but it's not a disaster. It's just a baseline. Abigail started off with a 147 and she was feeling unsure about it. But here's the thing, she hadn't done any real prep yet. She'd run out of time, guessed on a ton of questions, and still landed in the high 140s. That's actually a pretty solid starting point. Why? Because the LSAT is learnable. With structure, time, and the right strategy, like what we discussed during this call, it's totally possible to jump 15 points or more. In fact, for students starting off in the 140s, I see those kinds of gains all the time. What are your weak areas on the test right now? Do you see any particular areas that give you trouble?
Definitely timing, as we talked about, because when I do like the drill sets untimed, I'm scoring significantly better than when I do things timed. Also just getting down to language, because sometimes I just like, when I review the problems, I get where I went wrong, but it's just like little things that I missed, or just like little pieces of information that I didn't anticipate were important, were actually like really vital to understanding the argument. But also I definitely do need more work with reading comprehension. And I just know that just like off the bat.
Got it. Okay, and what's your approach to reading comp like right now?
I think the weakest part for me for reading comprehension is the comparison passages. I attended one of the classes last week that went over some tips on that, so I'm just trying to incorporate it, but majority of my practice and like what I've been doing from the program has been on logical reasoning, so I haven't really got to the reading comprehension part of the tutoring services yet.
Okay, all right, so there may be some adjustments that you make once you join more reading comp classes and work through more of the material, but then in logical reasoning, you mentioned timing as being a big issue for you. So what's your current pacing approach or strategy like right now?
I've been trying to think about like the first 10 questions in 10 minutes approach, but then I think like, I just like get stuck on like one question, and then the next thing you know, I've lost like 7 minutes. Then I get to the end and it's obviously the harder questions and there's not a lot of time left there. I don't really have an approach with it, and that's where the issue is, because I'm just like, okay, if I can get the first 10 in 10 minutes done, then I'll be okay. And then that's not what ends up happening. So I don't really know what to do in the event that that doesn't occur. So I don't really have an approach, I would say.
Got it. Okay, so you recognize the issue, but don't necessarily have the solution.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's definitely something I can help with. That's why I'm here. So when we look at pacing on logical reasoning, as you mentioned, first 10 in 10 minutes is a good benchmark if you're realistically aiming for a 160 plus, which you are. And that means that you can't afford to get bogged down anywhere, but especially not in those first 10. Is there a typical question number where you're getting bogged down, or is it anywhere?
I don't know if it's a specific question number, but it's definitely, it's with the questions where it's like necessary versus sufficient assumption. Like I know that I still need to work on that, and I've been going through the content there, but it's just like something about it, just like it hasn't clicked to my brain yet. And so like I end up spending a lot more time on those types of questions than when I want to. So I feel like that's where I get stuck. And then, yeah, the next thing you know, time's running out.
Okay, well, I've got good news here, which is that this is actually a really easy fix. It's rare that I find something where I'm like, if you fix this alone, it could easily add 5 points to your score overnight because there's low-hanging fruit there. So let's just get you crystal clear on the difference between necessary assumption and sufficient assumption, because we know there's going to be a lot of necessary assumption questions on the test. They're one of the most common types. Sufficient assumption, less common, but if we add those two types together, it's even more than either one individually, right? So it could be that this gets you another 3, 4, 5 points on the test, and that's doubled because there's 2 sections of the exam on logical reasoning, right? And so the first thing is, can we tell the difference difference between these two types. So when you look at the question stem, are you able to determine which type you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just give me your real quick, like 10-second version of like, what's the difference in your understanding? Just so I make sure you got it.
Okay. The way that I've been interpreting it as like necessary assumption, you would look for like less extreme language in the question types. And then for sufficient assumption, it could be very extreme as long as it gets like the job done of what you're looking for. And then you have like the conditional statement of like, does this fit in like the piece of the argument? I think where I'm getting confused is more so like, I understand what I'm looking for in the options, but I'm just confused with like how it fits into like what I've expected to find, like how it actually relates back to the conclusion of it. Is like the pieces make sense when I do the videos and I watch it and I'm like, okay, this is great, I'm getting it. And then I go and I do it on my own and I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you have a really clear understanding of what's the difference in terms of how you approach it. As you said, necessary assumption, we're looking for more moderate language in the choices because that's more likely to have been required by the stimulus than more extreme language would be. And then on the flip side, for sufficient assumption, as you said, it's okay if it's extreme as long as it gets the job done. Now, you referenced there how these relate to the conclusion, right? So for sufficient assumption, the correct answer guarantees the conclusion 100%, leaving no ambiguity, meaning the sufficient assumption, when combined with the evidence, guarantees the conclusion must logically follow. Then for necessary assumption, we're looking for something that, based on the stimulus, taking the stimulus as given, what underlying assumption needs to be the case in order for the argument to work, meaning for the conclusion to logically follow from the evidence. Now, I was actually asking something even prior to this, which is, can you tell the difference based on question stems? So I just want to make sure you're good on that too.
Yeah, I've been looking through the keywords in the question stems, and I think I have a solid grasp of that.
Okay, good. So then it sounds like you're saying all the right things in isolation here on this call.
Yeah.
The question is, what happens in the context of a full-time section or a full exam, right? So if that's the disconnect where you understand it theoretically, you understand it untimed, what you may need is simply more at-bats, doing the questions in more timed and stressful conditions where the stakes are a little bit higher. Let's say we gave you a grab bag of 30 quote-unquote assumption questions, half being necessary assumption, half being sufficient assumption. Number one, can you separate them? NA, necessary versus SA, sufficient assumption. And then secondly, are you able to apply the proper approach with that additional stressor or time pressure added? So as is so often the case, what I'll recommend is, if it sounds good in theory, the work is in the application, do some timed drills just to ratchet up difficulty a little bit and make sure you're still holding true to what you're saying now.
Okay.
But that may be all you need here just to get clear on that.
Yeah.
Abigail nailed one of the biggest barriers to breaking into the 160s. Mixing up necessary assumption and sufficient assumption questions. This is a super common issue, even for students who feel like they get it during their untimed work. But the thing is, you've got to know the difference in real time when you're under pressure. We walked through how necessary assumption questions are about what must be true for the argument to work, while sufficient assumption questions are more like puzzle pieces that guarantee the conclusion. Abigail understood this in theory, but what she needed was more reps to make that knowledge automatic. That's the solution. You do timed drills mixing up both question types, you tag them, you sort them, and you apply the right strategy for each one. I told her this one improvement could easily be worth 5 points or more. And when you're aiming for a 160 plus, that's a big part of the journey. Now, you mentioned that this is an area where you get bogged down. And so when people get bogged down or they get stuck and then the clock is ticking and they're wasting time, sometimes it's because just they get stressed and get tunnel vision, or everything looks blurry or looks like a foreign language, right? And so does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, I would say like sometimes when I'm doing like those types of questions, if I just don't understand if the stimulus or something, then, I focus too much time on that. And then I'm like, okay, well, if I can't understand the question, like I'm not gonna be able to get the right answer. And then it's just like a spiral of like, I don't actually know what I'm doing instead of trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, yeah, it's just like a little stress anxiety thing.
Yeah, of course. And that happens for so many students here. And one solution to that is what we just talked about, where if we can systematically, one by one, identify all the areas where you tend to get stuck, if there are commonalities in where you get bogged down or where you are more likely to get blurry vision on a question, and we drill those prior to test day, then when you get there, like let's say you do this drill that we talked about with the necessary assumption and sufficient assumption questions. If you drill those for a month, where every week or twice a week you were to do a drill of 30 questions of that type, do you think that your understanding would be more clear a month from now?
I feel like that would definitely help. I just worry that like it's not necessarily the timing and it's more something foundational, because I do get it, but then I just feel like when I I go to do it, like everything that I remember is just gone, if that makes sense. I feel like the timing of like the drill will help, but I also don't know if it will help me like with the actual application of it if I'm still a little confused.
Yeah, well, the key is that we got to figure out what about it could you still be confused on? Because we talked about how to tell the difference. You sound like you're good on that. We talked about theoretically what is the each argument question type asking you for. You correctly identified the difference there. Now, one thing we didn't get into, which is beyond the scope of this call right now, is to look at what are all the different types of necessary assumption questions, what are the different types of sufficient assumption questions, are there any gaps or holes in your foundation there? Because maybe you're good on 2 out of 4 for each type, but if you're missing half of them, then you could get bogged down if that one type or 2 types come up. So it could be that in addition to the drills, maybe you also need to go a little bit deeper in reviewing the foundational material. We've got tons of lessons on each of those types inside the program. You can also cover them in the live semi-private sessions as well.
Okay.
And so that could be another area to work on in addition to the drills.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the idea here being is that if there are certain patterns in where you get bogged down, if we can shore up the gaps in your foundation during your prep work over the next month or 2, then your final month or 2 prior to the test will be smooth sailing, just taking practice tests and working more on endurance.
Okay.
Then the last thing is, aside from gaps in understanding, sometimes people get bogged down just because of stress. Then the solution is, can we recognize when you're getting bogged down and then just make a tough decision, you know what, let's cut time here, skip it, flag it, move on, come back to it later because everything's worth the same.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I need to keep in mind, because I think like when I'm doing whatever drill sets or just like practice tests, like if I don't understand a question, instead of going back, I'll just like focus on answering it and then continue. But I haven't utilized the flag and come back method yet.
Try it. I mean, it's there for a reason and it can be incredibly useful. Ideally, perfect world, you wouldn't need to use it, but practically speaking, it's okay to use it. I mean, since every question is worth the same, there's no reason to risk getting bogged down or stuck or spending too much time on any one question, because you might be spending additional time there at the expense of some easier question later, and you want to lock down all the points you can as quickly as possible.
Okay.
2 things here. 1, systematically ID every area that gives you trouble where you risk getting bogged down. You mentioned the necessary assumption, sufficient assumption. Are there any other areas where you typically find yourself maybe more prone to getting bogged down?
I haven't gotten to this part of the course yet, but I do think that I need to work on like must be true statements. I feel as though there's a little bit of confusion and just like the vocabulary or like exactly what I'm looking for. So I think that that'll be an area where I need to do some more additional practice on when I get there.
Okay. Yeah. So that's another big area to focus on. Again, like the three biggest types in logical reasoning are necessary assumption, inference, and flaw. When I say inference, I'm including there must be true and most strongly supported. So the good news here is that you're mentioning some of the most common question types. If you were saying, I only have trouble with evaluate the argument, or I only have trouble with parallel, I'd be like, that's not great because those are rare types. So gaining there isn't going to gain you that many points. But if you gain points in a really common type that shows up more often, then you're going to get more bang for your buck devoting time there. Abigail described something I see all the time. She gets stuck on one question, spends way too long on it, and suddenly she's scrambling to finish the section. It's tunnel vision. You get so determined to crack the one question in front of you, you forget that every question's worth the same number of points. The fix might sound simple in theory, but it's a bit harder in practice. You've got to flag it, skip it, and move on. You don't want to get dragged down by a necessary assumption question just because it feels important in the moment. If it's not clicking after 90 seconds, mark it, keep your momentum up, and come back later. I reminded Abigail that on test day, it's not about perfection. It's about capturing as many points as you can. You want to grab all the easy wins and not let one question sabotage 5 others later. You mentioned reading comp, so I do want to make sure we talk about that a little bit as well. Now, when we brought up reading comp, you mentioned comparative passages, and I was like, comparatives, yes, a lot of people don't like them, but are you crystal clear on the long passages? Because there's 3 times as many of those.
I feel as though my biggest issue with the time passages is just like going back and like I'll reread the passage a few times, and just because like I need it, and I'll spend too much time reading it, and then I get to the questions and I don't utilize the best method of like the most effective method of answering those questions, but I'm still trying to figure out like what to do there. So I feel like the way that I've been going about it hasn't necessarily been the best for like timing, and also just like understanding exactly what it is that they're presenting to me. Like I'll read it and I'll be like, okay, I have no clue what's going on. I'll read it again, and then I'll go to the question, and then by the time I get to the next question, like I have to go back again. So I feel like I'm getting there, but I don't have the most effective methods yet.
Okay, so if you had to say like what your default approach would be going in, what does that typically look like?
I'll read the question first, so that way I'll know like like the first question of what I'm looking for. And then I'll go through the passage and I try to highlight like the most important parts or like things that I think will end up being useful. And then I found that like the first question was mostly like main point and like things like that. So I found those to be pretty straightforward. And then when I get to like the part of the passage where like they'll highlight a specific phrase or like a specific sentence that I have to go back, and then I feel like I need to reread a good portion of it for context because I've been so focused on like the main point or so focused on something else that I don't really read the passage for the other sections of what they're testing on. So I'll kind of have like tunnel vision on what I'm supposed to do first. And then by the time I get to another question, I have to reread for that type of focus. And that just like eats away at the time.
When you're doing your initial read, you're feeling like what you're reading in the passage is enough to help you knock out the main idea questions.
Yeah.
But then you find yourself having to go back a lot.
Yeah.
And is it really time consuming for you to have to go back?
It is, because I think when I go through it again, I feel like I just need to not read the entire passage, but like get more context of what it is that I'm focusing on, because I tend to not like, if they're not asking me about it, then I feel like I have the bad habit of like not giving it as much attention as it should get. And then I have to go back and try to understand it again. So I feel like that's where I'm getting tripped up, because I'm thinking that like I understand what I should be doing, but it's just putting it in practicality is where I'm getting stopped.
Got it. Okay, so it could be that you've got to get more efficient at going back more quickly. Because the thing is that you can't hold all 450 words in your head at the same time, and you don't really need to. The passage is there. It's available to you. I think you're right to walk away from the passage focused on the main idea, because that could help you knock out roughly a third of the questions. Your main idea, primary purpose, passage organization, best title, tone, author's opinion. You can knock those all out just on your initial read. The going back is, as you said, where it gets more time consuming. So there's two things you can do. One is you can get faster at the main idea questions to give you more time for the detail questions that require the going back. And then secondly, you can get faster at the going back process. And so the key is not to memorize everything with a photographic memory, but rather, can I find what I need quickly when I need it? So can you establish a quick mental map of the passage where you know the details on this topic are over here towards the end of paragraph 1, or the details on this other topic are here in the middle of paragraph 2. And so you know, generally speaking, within say 5 lines where you got to go back to find the details when you need them. Abigail's reading comp issue is something a lot of students face. She reads the passage, then rereads it, then has to go back a third time just to answer the questions. It's not that she doesn't understand the ideas, it's that she's not building a mental map of the passage. On the LSAT, you don't have to remember every single detail. You've just got to know where to find the details when you need them. So here's what I told her. On your first read, just get the main idea and the structure down. Note what paragraph serves what purpose. When the question later asks about a particular phrase or detail, you don't panic. You just think to yourself, where in the passage did they talk about that? If you can mentally tag each paragraph with something like author's opinion, background, or example, you will cut your rereading time in half. And that alone could be worth 3 to 4 more questions right on reading comp alone. It's okay. No, I'd say big picture here, focus on logical reasoning, because it's 2/3 of the test and you have some clear direction in terms of where to work on, not getting bogged down, working on the necessary assumption, sufficient assumption, then getting to must be true. Those are going to be some huge areas for you to get at least 5, 10 more points when you put that all together. Then maybe another 5 from getting a more refined reading comp approach. That alone could get you the 15 points you need to get you into the low 160s minimum, and you've got 4 months. So even if you spent the next month on logical reasoning, another month after that on reading comp, you've still got 2 additional months just to work on endurance, a bit more on pacing, and then targeting some new weak areas that might come up.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. What else?
I feel like those are the big things that I'm trying to focus on right now. Sometimes it's just like, it's hard to see the big picture, because I'm like when you're just like doing it right now. So I'm trying to like keep in mind that like it'll come with time, and then I just have to keep going.
You're still early in the process. You've already got a great handle on some major weak points, which is great because those are high yield or high leverage. When you talk about more common types, there's more points you can gain in those areas. And so the low-hanging fruit is definitely really encouraging. And plus, combine that with the fact that you have 4 months and change to get that increase, which is a pretty reasonable increase. High 140s to low 160s is honestly one of the easier increases you can get. It's a lot easier to go from a 147 to a 162 than to go from a 167 to a 182, because 180 is the max. But aside from that, where you're at right now, the gains come really easily because there's still foundational work to be done. And so I have no doubt you can get there if you apply apply what we talked about today.
Yeah, okay. And I have the full intention to, so I'll get there.
Awesome, fantastic.
I do have a few questions about just like reviewing. I've been hearing a lot in like the videos about you need to have like a solid review and like a method of like how you want to review. And truthfully, I didn't know how important it was until we started talking about it in the classes. And so I'm just curious of like ways to improve that section, because I do think that it has a lot of importance for me. So because like right now I've just been like going through the questions that I get wrong and like, you know, trying to figure out exactly like what part confused me and like go from there. So I'm just a little curious of what you'd suggest to first, I guess, like make that more effective, but also just like to actually understand what it is that you're doing wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll send you some lesson links on this, but big picture, I'd be looking at documenting your review process. So keeping some sort of log, like either a Google Doc, it could be a physical journal, it could be a spreadsheet. And then you have different sections for every question that you get wrong or have difficulty with, looking at, was my mistake stemming from misunderstanding something in the stimulus, misunderstanding the question type with the STEM, or misunderstanding something about the answer choices. So if it was in the stimulus, what might have thrown you off or led you to misunderstand the stimulus is something in how the stimulus was structured or how it was worded. If it was the question type, were you not clear on which type you were looking at? And then if it was in the choices, was it something about the wrong answer that made you pick it? Was something tempting about it? And then on the flip side, after the fact, upon reflection, what ultimately makes it wrong? And then for the right answer choice, what made it seem unappealing at first or what discouraged you from picking it? And then what ultimately makes it correct? Because you have these traps of encouragement towards the wrong answer.
They do get me.
Yeah, they do. They do. So you got to figure out which tricks and traps you personally are uniquely prone to falling for so that you can avoid making the same mistake again.
Do they keep the traps like not consistent, but like are there commonalities in the traps?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. I mean, one thing they'll love to do, for example, is the first half of the choice will sound really good, but there's one little word in the second half of the choice that makes it wrong. And people don't read all the way to catch that little detail at the end. And over time, as you document it more, you'll see more and more of the tricks and traps, and you'll figure out which ones you've been fooled by enough times that you'll learn the lesson to not make the mistake again. And the idea is that when you do questions now, you make the mistakes now so you can learn from them now and then not make the same mistake on test day.
Okay.
And that's something that we'll go over oftentimes in the semi-private classes. And then if you're ever interested down the line, then you could also cover that in one-on-one coaching if you ever want to go that route.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Of course, Abigail. Before we wrap up, what would you say is the biggest insight you got from our call today?
There's been a lot. Definitely creating a better structure for the trap for like the things that I don't understand, and understanding that it's like foundational things and that there's areas to improve, and like doing more drill sets and focusing on timing and endurance of those can help me like get to where I want to be with those types of questions. So I would say that because I mean, it's one thing to like watch the videos, and then it's another thing to actually apply and like do it with repetition. So I think that taking that advice would be really helpful, especially for like the areas of like necessary versus sufficient that I'm sure where I can improve and get a big point difference with those. So I think that'll be a really helpful takeaway.
Fantastic. Well, keep at it. It was a pleasure. If you need anything at all, just reach out. Yes. I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was nice meeting you on
you too.
Like a call. So
you're finally on video, of course. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye. Abigail had been going back to her wrong answers and trying to figure out where she went wrong, which is good. But it wasn't getting her the clarity that she needed. And that's because the key to LSAT review isn't just asking, what did I miss? You've got to ask, why did the wrong answer feel right? Why did the right answer feel off? And what trap did I fall into? And how can I spot it faster the next time around? I told Abigail to start logging these patterns. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a spreadsheet or a Google Doc. That's enough. But over time, you'll start to see what your LSAT traps are. Not someone else's, yours. And once you know them, you'll stop falling for them. That's how you make sure a wrong answer today doesn't turn into a wrong answer next week. Toward the end of our call, Abigail said something I think a lot of students feel. She said, sometimes it's hard to see the big picture. And I get it. When you're in the middle of your LSAT prep, doing drills, watching lesson videos, and reviewing questions, it's easy to feel like you're just treading water. But what we did in this call is exactly how you zoom out. We broke down her biggest pain points. We built a plan to tackle them in phases, and we clarified what wins look like at each stage. For Abigail, that meant starting with logical reasoning, fixing necessary assumption questions, mastering inference questions, and getting faster at identifying traps. Then, she's going to pivot to reading comp with a focus on mapping out the structure of the passages and improving her ability to retrieve information. That alone could be a 15-point improvement. And we mapped out that whole plan in just one call. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not behind. You're just one structured plan away from clarity.